Okay, so it is now Saturday evening, and I'll just show you guys what I got, and I probably won't record this or won't upload this until I finish up tomorrow evening or possibly Monday. But I did quite a bit today, so I thought I would go ahead and show you what I've got. The main thing I added was, I actually added a couple things. I added a timer class that lets me do things like holding things down. I'll use that to let you hold the up and down arrows and look up and down. I just haven't gotten around to adding that. I got other things to do. The main thing is here. I added some spawners. You can press the key and pick them up. And probably what I'll do is I'll make the frog's arms be a separate graphic, so that when you're holding something, it'll always be held. I might need to make it two separate graphics, but I'll figure that out. Two separate graphics so that it looks like you're holding it in your hands. Oops. Oh yeah, I added colliding with the spikes now. They don't do anything because I haven't told it to kill you, but you know, you can. But yeah, you can pick things up, carry them around, and you can throw them. Pick that up again. You throw the seeds, and if they hit something, they respawn back at the seed spawner here. So that's the main gameplay element. And I'll probably add an effect with a particle effect too, to kind of make things look a little better, and of course animate the seed so that it looks like it's kind of glowing and on fire. And then I'll also make a water seed, which I haven't decided how it's going to look, but it's probably going to be kind of like a lily pad or something. But yeah, I feel like it's starting to be an actual game. Now, what I'm wondering, oh, I have debug turned off. It should be recycling these, so I should be able to pick up as many as I want and just toss them around. And they're tied to one spawner, so when you destroy one, you have to go back to the original spawner and pick it up again, so we can start designing puzzles around picking things up and doing things. I'd like to probably start adding some monsters very, very soon, if not tomorrow. I may finish up. I haven't decided. I don't know what I'll do tomorrow, but I may decide to add that in, or I may not. You know, there's a bit of an arc. It's pretty good so far. It feels nice. I need to add some particle effects and some juice to generally make it look cooler. But that's kind of secondary stuff. I don't know that I'll add that right now. I do feel like it needs a border, a dark border around it, so that it can be better seen against the frog. It looks like you can't really see it. So we'll do that, and we will. Oh, so when it hits it, it should be pretty easy to extend that, so that when it hits a monster, it'll be do that appropriate thing, send the message to the monster, and so on and so forth. I'll see you tomorrow after I have done whatever I have done tomorrow. Alright, so it is Sunday evening, the 13th, and let's take a look at what I've got done today. I was asked by somebody on the on YouTube explaining to explain a little more about the programming side of it, and so I'm going to do that in a moment, but we'll take a look at where we are right now. So as you can see, it still kind of looks the same. There's some differences. This recording does lag this a bit, but here I've added in our first monster here. Jump on his head so you can see him. And maybe you can see him. He has an idle animation. This is the balloon monster, and he's kind of like an inflatable octopus. And I added animations for the fire seed as well. So if I pick up the fire seed and throw it at him, boom, he inflates. Bye bye. All right, so we'll rerun this. And we'll actually go to the next area so I can show it a little better. So the fire monster, the balloon monster is the first of our monsters that we're going to add, and I plan to have 3. One will be a balloon guy like that. One will be a jet guy that spits out fire or ice, and the other one will be a wall guy that expands. And I mentioned this yesterday, I think. So with those three, we should be able to have some things. So I'll toss this, and now if I grab onto him, I can float. Whoa! Oh, and I hit that. One thing I need to do is I do need to add variable jump height, I think. So you can see you can grab onto them and float up to the ceiling. You look kind of angry. I need to make something that makes it look more obvious that he's got that you can grab onto him, and I need to make some ceiling spikes that look different than that, but they're okay for now. I'll play it one more time so I can talk about things while I'm showing it to you. So yeah, I actually did quite a bit on the back end to change things around. Now I didn't add a bunch of more animation, so it still looks a little weird, right? I mean, you still go in front of that. I can fix that immediately, but I want you to be able to hold it. So let's take a look at what we've done on the back end, so I can talk a little bit more about what I'm doing as far as coding. And things that I've changed since before. So this is all the same. One thing I did was I moved the movement and collision code into my mobile class, which is my it's basically me replicating what Flixel does by adding speed, max speed, acceleration, drag. I could add max acceleration, but I don't think I need it right now. And this basically just works like Flixel does, so I can set the speed and drag and acceleration like I want, and I have facing constants, so I don't have to keep redoing this every time. One other thing I added was that every mobile has the collidables array, which is just an array of types, which tells us what we can collide with. So we can collide with the ground right now. That's just the default, so I don't have to set that every single time. I like to do that. So if I go to the player, which is one of our mobiles, I believe. Yep. By default, his collidables are ground and monster. And the reason I have that is because I have a separate type here called background monster, which is right here. And the background monster just means a monster that is in the background somehow, that it is part of the you can go you don't collide with it, because if I set it to no collide, then you'll never be able to actually run any collision checks to grab things. Okay, so let's take a look at movement here and what I have going for this, because I put it aside. I dumped everything into my one movement state, and then I put the idea aside, but I find that I'm going to need it. So here's the problem. When you're making characters, in particular the main controllable character, there's a lot of different states that character can be in. As many as you have in the game. Like right here I have 3 right now, which is normal for walking and standing, jumping, obviously for jumping, and clinging for when you're holding on to that guy. But for instance, say I wanted a state for climbing ladders, or a state for snowboarding down a glacier, or a state for pushing something. I'm actually going to probably have that one as my other one here, pushing. Each of those requires different sets of controls with different interactions and different often different physics. And when I find that I have everything in the player class, it gets really, really unwieldy, because the update here becomes this really long thing of just if. And it's very, very hard to debug. So what I did in the first video was I split things up to, basically I can just add an array of classes here, and that'll be all of our possible states, and it'll actually generate objects for us. But then all I have to do is set movement state. And in fact, beyond that, I almost never actually want to use set movement state, because the way it works is my goal is to mirror a state machine, right? So that I have, when you're in normal, and you set the normal state, this will actually, this is not state. I don't want the states themselves actually don't have a lot of information about them, right? They have a couple things. These two things right here are simply for convenience, so I don't have to constantly be looking things up, because I don't even know. Some of these are function calls, and function calls are not something I want to be doing every single frame. This I could break off into another place, but I kind of think it's okay here for convenience, and this is also here for convenience. It doesn't really have to be here. I could take it out. But the idea is that the state simply looks at the state of the player and returns what state the player should be in. And in my case, I have a bunch of side effects, namely the actual control of the player, because it's just easier. I don't need it to be totally stateless, and I don't need it to be just functional. There's no reason to do that for what I'm doing here. But the way it works is that when you enter the state, the enter function is called. Then every frame, the update function is called, and that will run through it. And then the update function expects that you return a class, and the class corresponds to one of these states. Right? So normally, when we update, we're going to return normal, because that's usually what's going to happen while you're standing on the ground. However, if during that frame I press jump, I will return the jumping thing, and it will transition into the jumping state. And I also have an exit function, which I don't currently use for anything for. In my case, the enter function here, what it does is it sets the standard physics for the player. I don't anticipate that I will have to change any of this, but if I ever want to, I can. And I can always make sure that the player, when he lands on the ground, will go back to the regular style of physics. Okay, so I'll go over the look up and look down in a little bit later. So here where we had the jumping one I actually did so that it extends the normal class, right? And it actually runs the same sort of things. It checks to see if you're moving side to side. I am handling the interact basically by, let's go back to here, that this is going to be a pretty big function that's going to check all of my possible interactions when I press the interaction key. There's really, I could break this down, but I'm not going to, because this is probably just, it's one of these functions that's going to be just really complex no matter what. Because if I want to have one button that does a whole bunch of different things, I'm going to have to do a bunch of things to do that. So what we have right here is that if the interact key is pressed, we'll check to see if we're currently holding on to an item. What we should do is throw that item. In fact, I think this can actually just be item, right? Item. And I didn't import that, so where's my items? Items. All right. I can do that, right? I should have let's do this right now then. When I'm talking about items here, all I have planned for are being able to pick up and throw. You know, actually, let's not do. Yeah, no, let's do this. This is just. We'll rename this to seed. I think. Can we just refactor it like this? No. Can I refactor it? Whatever. It doesn't really matter. And we'll just stub out these functions. And I should probably be okay. Okay, didn't I make that public? Okay, this is why I don't do this publicly. Yeah, public functions. Normal. Okay, yeah, it worked. Basically, because there's going to be two things, right? So this should also change this right now. There are going to be two items for now, fire seeds and water seeds, but I may, it's one of those things where if I ever feel like picking this up again, I can add different kinds of seeds, and it'll all work within that thing. So there we go. So first of all, if we're holding an item, toss it. If we're not holding anything, then the first thing we'll see is, are we colliding with a seed? If we are, then grab it. Are we colliding with a monster? Yeah. Are we colliding with a monster? If that's the case, then interact with the monster. And in this case, if it's a balloon monster that is in the fire state after we throw the fire seed at it, then we're going to return the clinging thing, and we're going to set this here. Now, I could think of better ways to do this, but I'm not going to right now. We'll just leave that for convenience. In this case, we're just going to return null. That way, I can just do a check right here for existence to see if it's something that's not null, and if it is, we'll just return that. All right, so we can just say in our interact function, we'll just have a bunch of different things. I could probably refine that into a more sane way to do it, but it's fine for now. And I made sure here that you're not holding anything, only because if there's a seed and a monster in the same place at the same time, and you press interact, what would happen is you would grab the seed, but then you would also interact with the monster. And while design-wise that should probably never happen, I'll just make it so that if you do grab the seed, then what you'll do is you'll be grabbing the seed and you won't be able to interact with the monster. So it'll favor the seed over the monster. All right, so our clinging state is very, very simple. All it is as you update, and this is again for convenience right here, this player thing. What I should do is make this a way to just pass in arbitrary variables, but I don't think I'm going to do that right now because it's just not enough time. Just make this an object so that I can feed in my properties object to the next state. Now, actually, I don't know that I want that. The only reason I do this is because when the game loads, I basically need to somehow get the player's a reference to the player, and you don't get that while the movement state is being loaded because the game hasn't actually loaded the level yet. It's not called until after it's loaded. So the basic problem is at some point I need to get this player object just to make it so that I don't have to constantly be looking up the player. The other option, of course, is to make every single one of these possible return things to be a thing, a state, but I'm not going to, or a function that'll return. But I'm not going to do that. I think this is easier for me to do right now. So I can turn left or right, but if I'm jumping, I'm actually going to take that off. I don't need to because I changed the way I did jumping. I'm just going to return that. Yeah, okay. Can I do normal here? I think I can just do normal. The basic thing that I want to have here is that I want it to be so that if you press interact, you let go of it. But if you press it's not great. Oh, I know what I should do. So the reason that he just like flew down is because this should be a Y, is because the player the acceleration basically got to maximum. He went to terminal velocity. There we go. Okay. So that worked. And now if you jump, you should just jump from it. And I haven't added in, oops, pick that up again. No, it got away. That's okay, we'll try on the other one. What I want to do is when you interact with it, you just let go of something, right? It's like the hold or let go kind of idea. Whereas jump is always jump, but holding or letting go is just holding or letting go. Oh, I should have stayed up there. I'll go back in a second. So let's pick this up, throw it at him, grab him, and we will jump. There we go. All right, so the other thing I added is if you hold up, if you hold down, or you hold up, after a second, it'll, ow. Oh, and I have an uncollided thing. I need to break this thing off somehow into its own tile map file. If you hold up or down, you will look up or look down. And before I wrap this up, because it's already getting really long, I'll mention that briefly. I need to find, I would love to find a good timer library that will just handle timer things, because it's the kind of thing that has to happen all the time within a game, and yet nothing seems to have like timers built in. Just like countdown timers, or this case, this is what I call a trigger timer, so that I call this and then I basically start a countdown, but if it ever hits not true, it undoes the countdown. And then when it's finished with it, it sends a callback. And in this case, I also have an optional callback that is the untrigger one, so that if you release the button or somehow, so the basic idea is just tapping up doesn't do anything. But if you hold it, right, it goes up or down. Hold on a second. Interesting. No, actually, never mind. Yeah, no, that's fine. All right. Try this one more time. Yeah, that's not right. It's not resetting its time. I think that's it. Nope, it's still buggy. I'll have to think about this later. Oh, why am I doing that? That shouldn't be doing that. I should be doing no, I don't get it. Am I decreasing the delay some point? It's basically, it's not resetting its time properly. I'll need to play with it. All right, so there we go. That's what we got. Talked a little bit about movement states. We talked about all this. I was asked to talk about things like handling collision, but the truth is I am just using. Let's go over here to mobile. I'm just using the standard built-in flash collision detection. Right. The only thing I'm overriding here is my custom thing, which handles speed and acceleration. I reset the speed to 0 when you hit something, which makes it work better. So I just move by, and then I have that collidables thing. Likewise, if I ever need to check anything else, I just use collide or collide types or whatever I need to use. It's nothing special. So yeah, there we go. I think we're doing pretty good. I'm pretty pleased right now with how the graphics look, but I will be adding more. I will be adding in the water seed and the next 2 monsters and be building levels pretty soon. But I'll probably need to keep doing more programming stuff pretty regularly. We're doing okay. We're about at the halfway point of the month. and hopefully we'll get everything done.